If you've ever been pulled over and thought, I'll just answer and be on my way, this is for you. There's one question that feels safe to answer but does the most damage. It doesn't accuse you of anything, it doesn't sound serious, but it's the moment many traffic stops turn into something bigger. Knowing when not to answer is just as important as knowing your rights. Let me show you the one question you should never answer during a traffic stop.
Number 1. Where are you coming from exactly? This question is dangerous because it is not about your driving at all. The traffic stop is legally supposed to be limited to the reason you were pulled over, like speeding or a broken light. When an officer asks where you are coming from, they are trying to move the stop away from traffic and into investigation. Your answer creates a story, and once a story exists, it can be tested, challenged, and used against you. If your answer later does not match a passenger, a camera, a receipt, or even the officer's assumption, that difference can be written down as suspicious behavior. Even small details like time, location, or purpose can become a problem. From a legal standpoint, you are not required to explain your movements. In most places, you must provide your license, registration, and insurance, but you do not have to answer questions about your day. This is protected by your right to remain silent. That right does not only apply after arrest, it applies during questioning. When you explain where you are coming from, you give information that can extend the stop. The officer can justify more questions by saying they are clarifying your answer. That is how a short stop becomes a long one. Another issue is memory and stress. Traffic stops are stressful. People misspeak, forget details, or simplify the truth. That does not mean you are lying, but it can be treated that way. If you say you are coming from one place and later mention another nearby stop, that change can be framed as inconsistency. Once something is written in a report, it is very hard to undo. Your words become evidence, not conversation. There is also no benefit to answering this question. It does not help you get a warning. It does not legally speed up the stop. The officer already has what they need to handle the traffic issue. Giving extra information only helps one side, and it is not yours. The law allows officers to ask many questions, but it does not require you to answer them. A safer approach is to keep the stop focused. You can politely decline to answer and stick to required documents. This keeps the stop within its legal limits and prevents unnecessary expansion. Knowing when not to answer is part of using your rights correctly. Silence, used properly, is not disrespect. It is lawful protection.
Number 2. Who does this vehicle belong to? This question matters because it shifts the stop away from driving and toward control of the vehicle. The officer already knows who the car is registered to. They can see that information before they ever speak to you. When they ask who the vehicle belongs to, they are not asking for facts they lack. They are checking whether your answer creates doubt about your right to use the car. That doubt can be used to justify more questions and more time. Legally, you are required to identify yourself and provide your license, registration, and insurance when asked. Those documents already show the registered owner. You are not required to explain your relationship to the car or why you were driving it. Borrowed cars, rental cars, company vehicles, and family vehicles are all lawful, but once you start explaining, you open the door to follow-up questions about permission, duration, purpose, and access. Each answer creates more angles for suspicion. Another risk is wording. People often over-explain. They say things like, "It's not really mine," or "I'm just using it." Those phrases can be misunderstood or written down in a way that sounds like uncertainty or lack of authorization. Even when everything is legal, unclear language can be framed as a problem. The officer does not need proof that something is wrong, they only need a reason to keep asking. There is also a consent issue tied to this question. If the car does not belong to you, officers may try to get consent to search by arguing you do or do not have authority over the vehicle. If you say the car belongs to someone else, they may claim you cannot refuse a search. If you say it is yours when it is not registered to you, they may claim you are being deceptive. Either way, answering puts you in a lose-lose position. From a rights perspective, your obligation ends with producing valid documents. Ownership questions go beyond the scope of the traffic violation. You have the right to remain silent and the right to limit the stop to its original purpose. Using those rights keeps the encounter clean and controlled. The key point is simple. This question does not help you. It only creates risk. Let the documents speak for themselves. Do not volunteer explanations that are not legally required. Keeping your answers minimal protects you from misunderstandings and unnecessary escalation.
Number 3.
Do you have anything in the car I should know about? This question is dangerous because it has no clear limits. It does not define what anything means or what the officer is supposed to know. That vagueness is intentional. It pushes you to guess what information might matter and to volunteer details you are not required to give. Once you start listing items, you give the officer material to work with, even if everything in the car is legal. From a legal standpoint, you are not required to disclose the contents of your vehicle during a routine traffic stop. Your duty is limited to identification and required documents. There is no law that says you must explain what you are carrying unless a specific legal obligation applies, such as required disclosure under local firearm laws. In normal circumstances, silence is lawful. Talking is optional. The biggest problem with answering this question is that normal items can be turned into suspicion. Cash, tools, medication, or personal property can all be described as unusual once they are mentioned. After that, the officer can ask follow-up questions to clarify why you have those items. Each follow-up extends the stop and moves it away from the original traffic issue. You may think you're being transparent, but legally you are building a trail. There is also a memory and wording issue. People forget what is in their car. If you say no and later an item is discovered during a search, that statement can be framed as misleading even if the item is harmless and forgotten. What matters is not your intent, but how the statement is recorded. A simple mistake can be written as a credibility problem. This question is also often used to lead into consent searches. If you mention something, the officer can ask to see it. If you hesitate or change your answer, that hesitation can be described as suspicious behavior. None of this helps resolve the traffic stop faster. It only increases risk. Your rights allow you to decline to answer broad, open-ended questions. Keeping the stop limited protects you. You do not need to guess what the officer wants to hear. The safest approach is to avoid volunteering information that the law does not require you to give. Silence keeps control where it belongs. Number 4. Why are you so nervous? This question is risky because it tries to turn your natural reaction into evidence. Traffic stops are stressful. Lights, uniforms, and authority make most people anxious even when they have done nothing wrong. When an officer asks why you are nervous, they are not trying to help you relax. They are trying to get you to explain your state of mind. The moment you explain it, your words can be used to justify more detention. From a legal perspective, nervousness is not a crime. It is not illegal to sweat, shake, avoid eye contact, or speak slowly. Courts have repeatedly recognized that many people become nervous around police. However, officers often write nervous behavior into reports as a reason to continue questioning. When you answer this question, you give them a quote they can attach to that observation. Your own words can strengthen their justification. Another problem is that people tend to apologize or over-explain. They might say they are nervous because they are late, tired, or worried about something unrelated. Once you say that, the officer can ask more questions about those details. Each answer opens another path. The stop becomes longer, not shorter. What began as a traffic issue turns into a discussion about your personal life, schedule, or plans. There is also no correct answer to this question. If you say you are not nervous, your body language may be used to argue otherwise. If you say you are nervous, that admission can be treated as suspicious. Either response can be written in a way that supports further investigation. This puts you in a position where talking does not protect you. Your rights matter here. You are not required to explain your emotions or mental state during a traffic stop. The law does not require you to justify how you feel. Your right to remain silent includes questions about your feelings, reactions, and thoughts. You can choose not to answer without breaking any law. The key issue is control. This question shifts control away from the traffic violation and towards subjective interpretation. Once emotions enter the report, the stop becomes harder to limit. Silence keeps the focus on objective facts, not impressions. The safest approach is to avoid explaining your nervousness at all. Let the officer handle the reason for the stop and nothing more. You are not obligated to help build a narrative about yourself. Using your rights correctly is not an admission of guilt. It is a lawful way to prevent a simple stop from turning into something bigger. Number 5. Mind if I take a quick look? This question is one of the most serious moments in a traffic stop because it directly asks you to give up a legal protection. When an officer asks to take a look, they are asking for consent to search your vehicle. If you say yes, the search becomes legal even if there was no strong reason to search in the first place. Once consent is given, the limits of the stop change immediately. The officer no longer needs suspicion tied to the traffic violation. Your permission replaces that requirement. From a legal rights standpoint, the Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches. That protection is strongest when you do not give consent. The law does not require you to agree to a search during a traffic stop. Refusing consent is not a crime. It is not obstruction. It is the normal use of your rights. Many people do not realize that saying yes removes the need for a warrant, probable cause, or explanation. Another problem is that consent is broad. When people hear "quick look," they imagine something limited. In reality, consent can allow officers to search areas, containers, and compartments that reasonably fall within the scope of the request. What feels small in the moment can turn into a full inspection. Once the search begins, anything found can be used, even if the original stop was minor. There is also pressure involved. By the time this question is asked, time has passed and conversation has already happened. People feel uncomfortable saying no. They worry refusal will make things worse. Legally, that concern is misplaced. Officers are allowed to ask. You are allowed to refuse. Courts have been clear that consent must be voluntary, not forced. You do not owe an explanation for protecting your privacy. Another risk is that consent cannot easily be undone. Even if you change your mind later, what was already seen or found can still be used. People often believe they can cooperate now and explain later. That is not how the law works. Once access is given, control is lost. There is also no benefit to agreeing. Allowing a search does not guarantee a warning. It does not speed up the stop. It does not make the situation safer for you. It only increases exposure. Even a clean vehicle can contain forgotten items that raise questions and extend the stop. The safest approach is to keep the stop limited to its original purpose. You can clearly and calmly decline consent. This keeps your legal protections intact and prevents unnecessary escalation. Using your right to refuse is not an act of disrespect. It is a lawful boundary. This question is the turning point in many traffic stops. Knowing that you can say no and that nothing bad automatically follows from doing so is critical. Silence or refusal here protects more than any explanation ever could.